What's up guys, Ryan here from E39 Source. We're working on a pair of 2000 M5s today, but this video is about this one. This is an April 2000 titanium silver E39 M5, and it's got one of the weirdest little issues or glitches or bugs that I have ever seen with a BMW. I've been around these cars a long time, and I've never seen something like this. So high beams are stuck on, but only when the low beams are on. So we're going to talk about a little bit of diagnosis, and then we'll figure out if this video is going to focus more on the bright stock replacement, which I'm thinking is what the problem is, but it also could be the LCM or the light control module. And I've kind of done a video on where that is and how to get to it before, so I'll probably focus a little bit less about that if that's the way we go today. But it's down there in the passenger footwell. So I'll firstly show you the problem. Now I pulled the switch toward me, so the follow me home lights are on. That's a completely normal function. If I put the key in here, I'm gonna go all the way to position 2, and I will note that I have unplugged the high beam lights right now. The wiring from the bulbs is disconnected because if I'm driving this car at night or anytime with the headlights on, it's just blinding everybody, and that's ridiculous and stupid. So I'll put the seatbelt on, we'll get rid of that. Then it's gonna tell us that the high beam lights are disconnected, and that is true because they are. So right now, with the headlight switch completely off, if I pull the brights, obviously they're not working since they're unplugged, but that's normal. If I pull the stock towards me, it should flash. Now I'll push the stock ahead. That's normal. Without the low beams on, that will do nothing. So this is completely normal functionality right now. Now we'll go to just the halos. That's the first position there on the switch. And we still have completely normal functionality. Now the switch right now is in resting position. It's not clicked forward for on. I'm not holding it back. That's the normal position. I'm going to flip the switch for low beams, and as we see, it thinks the brights are on. And I can't see, sometimes they'll go off, but that should be clicking it on, and it's not. Pull it towards me, and they're just really, isn't that weird? Like, it flickers a little bit. Sometimes you can get it to go off, push it forwards and nothing. Very, very weird. So the first thing I'm going to do is plug in some software. I'm going to use INPA on a Mac emulating Windows 7. Whenever I talk about that stuff, I ask you guys not to ask me for help with setup. You need the right drivers, you need the right hardware, you need the right cable. It's just a pain in the you-know-what. If you have access to the software, this could be instrumental today in helping figure out what's wrong with it. So we're going to take a look at INPA. We're going to take a look in PAsoft. The Carly could be used for something like this to scan the light module for errors, but we're in the shop today. We have access to more powerful hardware. So I'm going to hook that up. Firstly, I'm going to scan the LCM, the light control module, for any codes. And if it's telling me that, there's a problem with the switch, well, then I'm probably just going to go ahead and replace the switch today. But if it has like a bunch of EPROM errors or a bunch of weird, just never seen it before errors in the LCM, I'm going to assume that it's a bad LCM. So that's part one of using the software. That will be in PAsoft. Part number 2, INPA. I will use that to get a live status. It'll show you live status on all the switches in the car. So for example, a window switch, it'll show that the switch is not pressed. And then when I press the switch, it'll light up green. And it'll be like, oh, you're pressing the switch now. So we can kind of test the functionality of, is what I'm doing to the switch actually sending that command correctly to the light control module. So let me hook up my gear and we'll see what we see. So I had stupidly and mistakenly tried to connect to the LCM through INPA using the in-dash port, and I couldn't figure out why it wasn't communicating. Well, it's a 2000. The 2000 cars have the round port, so you got to use that. So several adapters later, and the Mac on top of a USPS box, and we can see that the LCM 3A in this April 2000 E39 is not reporting any errors, which is probably a good sign if I don't want to have to replace the light control module. So I'm going to click back out of this. If you have INPA, this looks familiar. Otherwise, try to get it if you want. But what we can do is look at read status, which is an F5 press. And now we have this whole list of switches. And since I've got to be out here under the hood, this is going to be a little challenging. But we can see that the high beam switch here says that it's on. Right? It's got a little black circle next to it and it says on. So I think the problem is the switch. So here's my setup. I'm in the car. I've got the laptop propped over there on the box, zoomed into the high beam switch, and I'm going to turn the headlights on now. Nothing changed there. I'm going to put the left signal on, and we should see that top white circle turn black, and it does. Side light switch might have to be that. Side lights in an E39 are otherwise known as halos. I don't know why they're called side lights, that's just what they are. So we have good communication with the module is responding. If I pull the high beam switch towards me, it says off. Let it back to normal position, it says on. Pull it towards me, off. Push it forwards, no change. Let's put the headlights back on. It only says off if I pull the switch towards me. We got a bad switch, guys. And that's why you need software like this to be able to show you exactly what the hell's going on with it. So now this DIY is about replacing a headlight switch. That took a while. So if you didn't need that, I'm sorry for wasting your time. But let's start the bright turn signal stock replacements, DIY, I suppose. Now this M5 is a 2000. It's got the original 2000 M5 wheel. So what we're going to need to do is remove the airbag. Well, let's start from the beginning. Step 1, turn off and remove the key. Step 2 will be disconnecting the battery in the trunk, since we're going to remove the airbag. If you don't disconnect the battery, you will have a lovely red airbag light on your dash until you reset that, and you run a little bit of risk playing with the airbag electronics with the battery plugged in. So disconnect the battery. Then these airbags are held onto the steering wheel with Torx bolts. I believe that's how I remember it, because my car used to have this wheel as well. So I think they're 2 T30s. We're going to need to rotate the wheel like 90 degrees this way and then 90 degrees that way, so we can access the screws from here or down here, either at 12 or 6 o'clock. And then there's going to be a big 16mm bolt in the middle, and then the wheel will come off. From there, I've actually never replaced one of these stocks before. I've never seen one of these stocks fail before. It's going to be a learning process for me as well. We're going to need to remove the steering column trim, which is going to be held in with a Phillips little expanding pop rivet in a little hole right here. And then I think it's the same thing on the bottom. Yeah, there's another hole with a little screw in there. Let's actually do this. Before we disconnect that battery, it's going to be a lot easier to turn the wheel with the car actually working. So let's actually start up the car and rotate the wheel a little bit, and it is indeed a T30. So I'm going to have it like this. I'm going to back out that top T30, and I'm going to rotate it like that. Get the other T30, then we'll put the wheel back to normal position, turn the car off, disconnect the battery. I like to disconnect the battery this way and then flip the little cover back over here in the trunk, just so there's no way that negative cable can make an attachment back to the terminal on the battery. So that's just a 10mm nut on top. Loosen it, lift it up, secure it safely like that. Don't close your trunk right now. You won't be able to reopen it easily. If you do close your trunk with the battery shut, you can always put a key in here and then forcefully turn it. Is it anti-clockwise? I mean, don't go crazy with force, but there's a manual trip to release it if you have to. So now we can come back in the car. The 2 T30s are loose. They are captive screws, so they're not going to fall out like that. And then the airbag just comes apart like this. And then it's actually just plugged in to the clock spring right there with a little fastener, and I need kind of 2 hands here. So just very carefully and gently put it in a static-free, dry location like the seat. Now we can see the 16mm bolt holding the steering wheel on, and there's going to be one more electrical connector here on the right. This is for the multi-function cruise panel and multimedia panel, and that's just going to pull straight out as well. Now we can remove that 16mm bolt and we'll have the steering wheel off completely. Now if you've got a 2001 or newer E39 that you're doing this on, you don't have this steering wheel. You don't have an airbag that's held in with Torx screws. They're a little bit trickier. I'm just going to put a clip in here from a previous video that I've done about removing the airbag. You just need a Phillips head flathead screwdriver that you'll be inserting from the side. So here's that clip now. Next tool we need is a flathead screwdriver that we're going to insert little holes back here to push in a clip, and I'll show you that action once I get the steering wheel or the airbag off and the steering wheel off. I'll show you how that's going to work. The screwdriver is going to go in this way, horizontal. You're going to feel around, poke around at a couple different things until you feel something that has spring tension to it. Push that in and pry it out. Don't use something hard, you'll destroy this trim here. So just pry it out with your fingers, something soft. Same deal over here. Then you'll be able to lift this out, find these 2 connections, if you could film please, Kevin. And then I believe to remove the 2 connections with, of course, your battery disconnected, we're going to use a flat blade screwdriver, a knife, something like that, to insert to this little lowered point and pry up and out. And I'm going to wedge the screwdriver in there and show you what we need to find and press to get the airbag out. Alright, feeling around in there, I think I've got it. If you notice right here, that's moving. So what you're going to want to do is push that in, it pushes it out. Then you're going to pry the airbag out. Once you get it pried out, maybe a ½ inch as far as it goes, you can let go of that, come over to the left side, and do the same thing. That's how we're going to get the airbag out. Bolt comes out easily. Now, a couple things to make note of here. See these two black pegs like that? Those center the clock spring on the wheel. So when you get the wheel off, do not rotate that. If it moves a little bit, that's fine, but don't go spinning it around. That's not going to be good. You're going to break the clock spring. The other thing to note is directly at 6 o'clock, where that bolt was, you see the little tick in the wheel, and there's another little tick in the shaft. Those have to be lined up exactly, otherwise you're going to be turning right to go left, and that's not a good time. So at that point, the wheel comes off, put that somewhere, and now we can focus on these trims, which I mentioned are just a Phillips head screw. Somewhere here in the bottom there's a little hole, and then the clip will pull out once you release the screw. Everything's black plastic, and then there's another one up top. A couple of notes. So before you start working on the steering column trim, and preferably before you take the airbag out so you don't have to put it back in like I just did, we want to bring the column all the way towards us and all the way down using this adjustment lever here. Obviously that needs to be done before the battery's disconnected, so just start out like that. There's no reason to have to put it back together again. Then we have the Phillips screw up top. Those screws, I know the lighting's poor in here, look like this. It's a black Phillips head that you loosen, and then the whole thing should pop out. If you can only get the screws out and the rest is still in there, that's okay. Just pry up on the top part, down on the bottom part of the trim, and then we don't need to fully remove them. Really just pushed up like this and pushed down like that should be fine. We should have access to this stock. Now this is going to be my parts mule here, I think, or at least I'm going to look. I don't know which. The stock's a little dirty, so I'll see if I can find a cleaner one. I've got 4 of these things. But we're going to talk about just what holds the stock onto the column electrically and mechanically. Electrically, it's very simple. There's one plug in the back. It plugs in straight from the rear. It's got a little push tab on the side that you press in and then wiggle it out. And it's white in color, so we'll need to disconnect that electronically. Mechanically, it looks like it's sandwiched in between the metal part of the column and the clock spring. Clock spring is what I told you not to twist. Looks like it doesn't twist that much anyways. It's the part that rotates here. And these look like T30s or T25 Torx, so we're going to have to take the clock spring off carefully. Looks like there's going to be one in the top left, another one in the top right. Maybe we'll need to remove that one right here. And yep, there's another one over there. And then electrically, this thing is probably going to be held on with a connector somewhere as well. So we'll need to remove that, and then the stock should just come right out. So I found a cleaner unit with a little bit cleaner, less worn turn signal stock. I removed the 4 Torx. They are 4 T25s. I just used a gun on that. I tried using a screwdriver. They're just a little tight. Could certainly get away with a screwdriver, but the gun's a little quicker. So you remove those, and then the whole thing, the entire stock assembly just comes out. And we can get a look at the back side of the stock assembly, and see that there will be electrical connectors we'll need to remove inside the car. Down there at 6 o'clock, looks like there's 2. We're going to have to undo the wiper stock as well as the signal stock, as well as the electric steering wheel adjustment stock has another connection. So there'll be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 electrical connectors that I can see on here. Then, and obviously this one is already disconnected, it looks like there's just 2 tabs that will need to be pressed in towards one another on the back, and the whole thing should come out. We need to firstly remove the electronic adjustment stock, because that kind of sandwiches this piece of plastic in between the two over the turn signal / bright stock. So now I'm going to have to figure out how to remove the adjustment stock first. Okay, believe it or not, the electronic steering wheel adjustment stock comes out pretty easily. So there's this tab here, and you pull it kind of down and out towards you, and then simultaneously pull this out to the side, and the whole thing just slides off like that. And you see the problem was this little kickstand part that was in the way. So now we should be able to flip this back over, and you again need 2 hands, but the turn signal stock / bright stock should wiggle right out now. Back inside the car, we firstly remove the 4 T25s that I showed you before. Then we have the white connector for the turn signal stock. We have the black connector for the wiper stock. There's little tabs on both sides that you just press in and then pull them straight out. Down at the bottom for the clock spring is the green connector. Same deal, press the tabs in, pull it out. And then the white one for the electronic steering wheel adjustment doesn't have any tabs. It just pulls out. Looks like a 6-pin. So now I have the whole unit over to the bench, and I'm going to swap the actual stocks. Now, there'd be nothing stopping you from just swapping the entire thing if you want to buy the whole thing as a unit, or if you have access to parts cars, or I do. If you want one, I'll send you one. Send me an email, ryan@e39source.com. I can send you the whole thing, and then it's just a matter of plugging it back in, putting the screws back, and reassembling the column here. Here's the unit out of the car. I've already swapped in a new, hopefully working bright stock. Really the key is just taking this thing off first, as I said with the lever. Just push or poke or pull the lever, and that slides out, and then this part slides out very easily as well once you pinch the tabs on the side of it, and we're going to be good to go. So I'm going to put it back in the car, we'll connect everything, and give it a test. Got the new setup installed in the car. It's a little bit tricky. For one, there's a little ring that goes around the splined steering shaft here, and it will inevitably fall off. And there's kind of a chamfered cut end, and then there's a smooth end. The smooth end should face us. The chamfered cut end goes in there. Then, reinstallation of the leather or plastic steering wheel column trim. That was a little bit tricky. So the top part goes on first, get it lined up. There's two little pegs that very obviously slide into two little slots or two little grooves on the metal part of the column. Get the top part lined up first, then line up the bottom, smack it into place. All of the little plastic clips should engage. Be careful with it. They are plastic clips. They're old now. They could break. You should have a nice, tight, smooth seam or gap all the way around. So now we've got that done. So I'm ready at this point to put the steering wheel back in place, make the proper electrical connections, plug the airbag in, and before I tighten everything up, I am going to verify that this all works now. For steering wheel installation, that 16mm bolt in the middle is going to go down to 59 pound-feet. Have somebody kind of counterhold the steering wheel while you torque that down to spec. You probably don't want to just put all that force into the clock spring or wherever it's going to be going. Well, let's give it a start, try it out. Normal functionality is restored. Make sure everything works, all the motors, the wiper stock, everything's plugged back in. Perfect. That was fun. Took me longer than I thought. It's a little bit finicky. All the plastics have a specific order of operations. Don't forget your little plastic Phillips screw that holds on the upper and lower column trim. I've put those back in. We're torqued to spec. The battery's back in. I just need to reset the time and date over there on the nav. All right, guys, that's it. Everything's put back together. The brights work. I haven't taken the car for a test drive yet, but I did check the self-canceling signals to make sure that they work too. They don't seem to impose any sort of additional opposition for removing the stock like that. So thanks for watching. I hope this was able to help you guys out. I will leave the part number for this stock down below in the description below the video, so if you're looking for that, it will be there. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Feel free to email me, ryan@e39source.com, and I'll talk to you guys in the next E39 Source video. Take it easy.